Heyo. I am doing my first song inspirations video. We are in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's a beautiful day. We're out on tour. And so it looks like the one y'all wanted to hear about first is Devil's Waltz. Just kind of fun for me. It's the first song that Sophia and I ever wrote together. And so it's been a hot second since I've looked at the inspiration and really dug into the words and kind of went over some of that. So I'm excited to kind of explore that today. We'll see how it goes. So, I think just the, musically, one of the huge inspirations for this song is klezmer music, definitely. And I knew that bringing it into Sophie for that first song, I really wanted to do something. I like the idea of doing something that was very inspired by klezmer music because she's very, very into klezmer fiddle. And so I thought it would be a really good, and you have that harmonic minor there. Then you go to that major chord, that harmonic minor scale there. And so that was kind of, when I first started working on it, that's what I was kind of doing. And then I actually started writing this one for you Minneapolis folks. I was living on Cedar Riverside, right above the Republic. Some of you may know the area. And I wrote the first verse for both my part and Sophie's part and the chorus when I brought the song into Sophie. So let's kind of dig into the words and we can kind of take a look at it. So I was down in Rochester. I was visiting my parents' house, and that's when Sophia came over. We started working on the song, and I kind of had, this basic chord progression. And it was our first time trying to write together, and I had, written the first couple verses. I remember playing the chord progression on repeat, and Sophie was telling me kind of what it made her feel, or some of the ideas. I remember her saying, like, oh, it really reminds me of fall, of autumn, of falling leaves, things like that, death, thieves, all the dramatic stuff we were into. And I remember stopping and being like, Soph, what if he dies in the song? Which I think is pretty telling about how we liked a little bit of drama in our songs. Still do. So we really felt, that's kind of was our key thing we were going after and kind of figuring out the story there. And so that first verse, that, oh, my girl, take hands with me, we'll waltz around that sycamore tree, we'll sing an old song that we heard on the wing, hopes of escaping the devil's worst sin. It's just, kind of setting up the characters as this boy, this girl, they're dancing around this tree. And one thing that's really interesting about this song being a story rather than our thoughts is it's very subjective in what the story is. So I think a lot of the details I'll be going over, the way I see it in my head, nobody might be able to see exactly the same thing because it's poetry and it's not incredibly literal. But I kind of have this picture of this boy and this girl who are in love, and they're dancing, they're waltzing around this old sycamore tree, and that's kind of where that is, what that means in the song. And they're young and they're in love, and it's in hopes of escaping the devil's worst sin. And it's almost like the devil's worst sin in my mind, I guess, would be like escaping death, right? And kind of like in the seeing it in the way that you would see maybe Hades in Greek mythology, of Hades rules over hell, and so if you never die, if you escape death, you kind of escape his rule or escape his kingdom. And so as a dark fairy tale, which this song is, that was kind of the idea we were going after there. And then you got that chorus that I don't feel any pain when we roll in the mud, when we play in the rain. My heart, it bleeds through, on my shirt leaves a stain, numb by the tune of our lover's refrain. And, they're young, they're in love, and there's just almost this sense of, like, they're so deeply in love that it's numbing all of their pain. And I think that my heart, it bleeds through, and my shirt leaves a stain, it's almost this foretelling of what's going to happen in the story. And of course, because the chorus later, it will be the present, and then it will be, it'll actually happen in some of the later verses. So then Sophie comes in with that second verse, and it's, you'll call me wisdom, and I'll call you boy. We'll represent life when suffering, when joy. We'll dance around the edges of place in the fall. We'll twirl the fine line of the devil's waltz. And I almost think of this idea of their tempting fate. They're almost mocking death and saying, like, we're so in love, we're going to escape, like, we're escaping pain, we're escaping all these things, and in that they're almost, trying to escape death in that way, and escape pain and escape those things, and also just showing the duality of their characters. You've got sorrow and joy and wisdom and boy, which boy represents innocence, and it goes back to the chorus, and we've got that our first big violin solo. So let's get to the third verse. That's where it gets really interesting, and then things really starts to change. So basically, you've got that kiss you goodbye, and I laced my boots, and taste your skin as the sweetest of fruits. I marched off to battle, and all that I felt is the kiss of the bullet that sent me to hell. And this idea that, so the boy is called off to war. So he goes off to war and he dies. And so then, instead of going back to the chorus, Sophie gets a response. And I almost like that, this, I lifted your body and screamed at the gods. Half of my soul is what our love costs. And I laced up your boots and climbed out to save the man's soul and body from Hades' sweet grave. And so, this part is very vague, but what we were thinking when we were writing about it is she basically goes out onto the battlefield and she finds that her love has died. He's been killed in war, and she's distraught, and basically what she decides, and the idea of half of my soul, you're half my soul, you're half my being, because love does cost something. Half my soul is what our love cost, and basically what she decides to do is she's decided to go down to hell to save him. And this is very definitely a reference, whether or not we meant it to in hindsight, it's definitely a reference to this kind of Orpheus and Eurydice's story with the roles reversed. And so what she basically does is she puts on his combat boots and climbs down into hell to save him. And I just like that image of she takes on the mantle of this warrior or this soldier to go into battle, to go down into hell and find her love. So I just really like that image of her lacing up the boots, and I was really, really excited about it. I remember when we wrote it. Just about kind of that imagery there. All right. So then, we kind of sink down into that, into the boom, chak, chak, boom, chak, chak, boom, chak, chak, boom, chak, chak. And I mean, partially we just did that because we think it's pretty cool, and we kind of fall down into that Russian bottle dance, you can kind of picture it. And it's kind of like, and it goes into Sophie's solo and all of this, and that's kind of like this voyage of, into the most aggressive or the biggest part of that final violin riff or theme that's been playing throughout the song. And it's kind of like that is the journey through hell, that whole violin journey down into that like really big, and then into that just the violin solo. Oh, we got a plane coming through, bear with me. And then into that with the kick and the hi-hat, and just really big and really robust ending there. And so then the last verse, which is that watch me put on that pretty black dress. Soph sings it, I go, and all dressed to match you in Lucifer's vest. We both sing, stole from him on that cold autumn's eve. We were dressed in the moonlight, lovers and thieves, and it goes, I don't feel any pain. So this idea of she goes down, she succeeded, and they are so cocky almost. Not only does she goes down and saves him, but to mock, this idea of they were right all along, right? That they are escaping death. And that's what happens at the end of the song. And so they mock him even more. Not only do they escape, but they steal Death's vest. And he wears it around, and I just kind of have this idea of they come out, and, I've always kind of imagined in the fall and the autumn, and they go singing and dancing, this tune they've been singing this whole time, this mocking of death, this refrain of, I don't feel any pain when we roll in the mud, when we play in the rain. Heart it bleeds through, even when he, is murdered and dies. On my shirt leaves a stain, but it's numbed by the tune of our lover's refrain. And they almost go dancing and singing this into the night of just their final mocking of death, and they go off into the night, into eternity, singing that, and that's, almost this idea of they've escaped and death will never be able to touch them. And in that way, their love does defeat death. And so that's kind of the story behind it, and I hope that if you had your own version that you liked in your head, I think a lot of our art is subjective, so I hope you hold on to that and you still enjoy your own story or your own version of it. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, I tried to write down as many notes as possible and just think through everything. But please comment below, and I would be happy to answer any other questions about it. Thank you for bearing with me through my first video. I know I'm kind of stumbling over my words and I'm getting things figured out. I am not the most eloquent speaker, but I know I'm going to have a lot of fun doing these, so I hope you really enjoy them. And then I'm also going to be posting the song so you can kind of take a listen to eventually how the song evolved. And we did it on our first EP, The Changeover, when we first started out, and then we re-recorded it for our newest album, Like Kings. So you can kind of hear even the evolution there of just as it progressed, more and more and more ideas. And this song was really a journey for us, figuring out exactly what needed to happen. But this is probably our most popular Good Morning Bedlam song, and I really hope you enjoyed this. And I would love any feedback, and just let me know what you would like to hear or other types of things you would like to know in these songs. Once again, comment. Thank you so much.